A powerful weather pattern may put millions across the United States at risk from severe storms, tornadoes, flooding, and dangerous conditions. Today's precipitation map shows that rainfall is concentrated in a few key regions across the United States, while much of the country remains dry. The most active area is along the central Gulf Coast, especially near southeastern Texas and coastal Louisiana, where a cluster of moderate to heavy rain is producing intense downpours. Localized flooding of low-lying roads and brief reductions in visibility are possible in these locations. Across the central Rockies, including parts of Wyoming and Colorado, scattered showers and isolated heavier pockets of rain are developing, bringing beneficial moisture but also brief periods of heavier rainfall. Along the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, a narrow band of moderate to heavy rain stretches from near Washington, D.C. through New York and offshore into New England, creating wet travel conditions and occasional heavy showers. Meanwhile, much of the Midwest, Great Lakes, Central Plains, and interior Southeast remains largely dry, with little or no measurable precipitation today. Overall, rainfall is focused in a few active weather corridors rather than covering the entire nation. Looking ahead over the next 3 days, moisture from the Gulf Coast and the eastern storm track could become more organized. If that happens, heavy rainfall, flash flooding, and isolated severe thunderstorms may become a significant threat across portions of the Gulf Coast, Southeast, and Northeast. Residents should continue monitoring local weather forecasts and remain prepared for rapidly changing weather conditions. Today's wind map shows generally light to moderate winds across much of the United States, with the strongest wind activity focused along the central Gulf Coast and parts of the Atlantic coast. The most active winds are occurring near coastal Louisiana and the upper Texas Gulf Coast, where a compact circulation is producing stronger gusts around the shoreline. These winds may create rough coastal waters and reduced visibility in heavier rain near the Gulf. Across Texas, including Houston, wind speeds remain relatively light at around 10 kilometers per hour, while Dallas is experiencing light breezes near 19 kilometers per hour. The Midwest remains fairly calm, with Chicago around 8 kilometers per hour and Minneapolis near 7 kilometers per hour, providing generally quiet wind conditions. Across the Southeast, including Atlanta, winds are also light at approximately 13 kilometers per hour. Along the East Coast from Washington, D.C. to New York, winds increase to around 24 kilometers per hour, while stronger coastal winds continue offshore near the Northeast. In the west, Seattle is experiencing breezy conditions near 23 kilometers per hour, while Salt Lake City remains moderate around 13 kilometers per hour, and Los Angeles stays relatively calm. Overall, today's wind pattern is manageable across most of the country, with the Gulf Coast seeing the greatest activity. During the next 3 days, there is an increasing risk that the Gulf Coast wind circulation could strengthen. If this system intensifies, damaging wind gusts, hazardous marine conditions, localized power outages, and difficult travel could develop across parts of the Gulf Coast and nearby southern states. Residents should continue monitoring local weather forecasts and stay prepared for rapidly changing wind conditions. Today's temperature map shows a clear contrast across the United States, with the hottest conditions focused over the southern plains and Gulf Coast, while much cooler air covers the northern states. Houston is one of the hottest major cities today at around 36 degrees Celsius, while Dallas reaches approximately 33 degrees Celsius, creating dangerous summer heat across much of Texas. Along the Gulf Coast, including Florida, temperatures remain near 30 degrees Celsius, combining with high humidity to make conditions feel even hotter. Across the Southeast, Atlanta is around 26 degrees Celsius, bringing warm but less extreme temperatures. In the Midwest, Chicago is near 18 degrees Celsius, while Minneapolis is around 17 degrees Celsius, providing a much cooler and more comfortable day compared to the South. The Northeast also remains relatively mild, with Washington and New York around 22 degrees Celsius, while Ottawa is cooler near 12 degrees Celsius. Across the west, Los Angeles is about 23 degrees Celsius, Salt Lake City around 21 degrees Celsius, and Seattle near 21 degrees Celsius, offering moderate summer temperatures. Overall, the strongest heat is concentrated across the southern United States, while northern regions continue enjoying cooler conditions. Over the next 3 days, there is an increasing possibility that the southern heat will intensify further. If this occurs, dangerous heat index values, prolonged high temperatures, and an increased risk of heat-related illnesses could affect Texas, the Gulf Coast, and neighboring southern states. Residents should stay hydrated, avoid prolonged outdoor activities during the hottest part of the day, and continue monitoring local weather forecasts. Today's humidity pattern across the United States shows a clear contrast between the northern and southern regions. The Gulf Coast, including southeastern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, is experiencing the highest humidity, making the air feel very warm, sticky, and uncomfortable. Dew point values in the mid-20s Celsius indicate tropical moisture spreading inland from the Gulf of Mexico. Along the southeast coast, humid conditions will continue through the day. Across the Central Plains and much of the Midwest, humidity is lower to moderate. States including Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, and surrounding areas are experiencing more comfortable air compared to the Gulf Coast. Farther north, including Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes region, lower dew points are providing noticeably drier and fresher conditions. In the western United States, especially across California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and much of the interior west, humidity remains relatively low. Dry air dominates these regions, supporting warm afternoons but reducing the sticky feeling found in the south. Over the next 3 days, Gulf moisture is expected to remain very high. If this tropical humidity combines with slow-moving thunderstorms, localized torrential rainfall and flash flooding could become a significant threat across parts of the Gulf Coast and southeast. Residents should closely monitor local forecasts, remain alert for changing conditions, and prepare for rapidly developing weather if heavy tropical moisture continues moving inland. Today's pressure pattern across the United States is dominated by a broad area of high pressure over the Midwest and upper Midwest. Central pressure around 1,021 megabytes across Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Iowa, and nearby states is supporting generally stable weather with calmer atmospheric conditions. This high-pressure system is helping keep much of the northern and central United States relatively settled today. Across the eastern United States, pressure remains fairly steady between 1,015 and 1,017 megabytes from the mid-Atlantic through the southeast. These values indicate a stable atmosphere for many locations, although nearby weather systems could still influence local conditions along the Atlantic coast. The lowest pressure on today's map is centered near the western Gulf Coast, with values close to 1,009 megabytes across coastal Texas and the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. This lower pressure area is drawing moisture inland and creating an environment that can support increasing cloud development and unsettled weather along portions of the Gulf Coast. Across the western United States, pressure generally ranges from 1012 to 1018 MB, with no widespread deep low-pressure systems dominating the region today. Looking ahead over the next 3 days, the greatest concern will be the low-pressure area near the Gulf Coast. If it strengthens or interacts with tropical moisture, it could produce widespread heavy rainfall, localized flooding, and strong thunderstorms across parts of the Gulf Coast. Residents should closely monitor future forecasts and remain prepared for rapidly changing weather conditions.